catchphrase that says, "I'm not doing again." So looking at these people now, for Mr. Macroni, he demonstrates the culture of a culture that have also made a lot of resistance, that is very controversial, because there are these arguments about him, this portrayal of the female, but that's not the aspect we are going into now. We are looking at how that platform exists as the creators platform. And then for Sabinus, it fits in, and also actually the whole four of them, they fit in and benefits from participatory digital culture. So looking at these four performances, we could see how they have carved a niche for themselves through humor, and at the same time benefiting from digital entrepreneurship. And then if you look at Brainjotter's slang of saying, "I'm not doing again," it kind of shows some kind of disillusionment, looking at the try to reflect the Nigerian situation theme of resistance and the rest of it. So we'll now conclude on that. An analysis of these performances show that the ability of the creator industry to cross genres and platforms illustrates the multimodality of the creator economy and its porous boundaries with mainstream Nollywood and Nollywood. The other new Nollywood space, which is exemplified in this study by those four people I am studying, signals a paradigmatic shift in Nigerian cultural production. It is situated between tradition and innovation, between local and global, between performance and commerce. And this industry is reshaping how Nigerians produce, consume, and relate to media. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. She wanted to study the second one. Thank you so much for that. I think we should just take 3 presentations and then now engage with the authors at the end of the presentations. Thank you so much, Dr. Bassi. Well, before we move to Professor Nipa, I will ask the question later. Why do from Africa and compare 2 names twice? I'm saying it twice. So that will be it's going for another yes. That's another discussion we will have after this time. Don't worry, after this time, after this time. I want to learn this. I want to learn that. So, Prof, thank you so much for waiting there. Can you hear me, man? Hello, Prof.
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. So you are coming on next. You have 15 minutes. Since you are not here, when it's 5 minutes to the end of the time, I'll say 5 minutes, please, in case I interrupt you. And then you can time yourself.
Okay.
All right, man. Thank you so much. So, Prof, over to you.
Thank you very much.
Explain, please.
The title, yes, I'm about to do that.
Okay.
And if you're having any issue sharing your screen, you can send it. I may just chat.
I'll do that now.
And send my mail. Okay.
Okay, you've not turned it on. So I'm sending the request to you.
Okay, yeah, yes, it's fine. I've allowed you.
Okay. Thank you very much. The title of my presentation is Technology and the Woman's Story in Nollywood. We have a lot of stories by women in Nollywood. And because we are talking about the creator economy, many of these women who in old Nollywood focused mainly on acting have become creators themselves in Nollywood. And of course, we know that there is a dichotomy between that which is old Nollywood and new Nollywood. So I commence this presentation by telling us about old Nollywood and new Nollywood. The term glocal is a fusion of that which is global as well as local. And because within Nollywood, we've come to see some heterogeny and syncretism where you have different kinds of borrowings. In fact, the titles of the two films I'm focusing on have been produced elsewhere. So you have that pastiche, copying and pasting, cutting and pasting tradition in Nollywood. Also, there is the feature of women as characters and readers from a technologically aided stance. So most of these women storytellers know a lot of technology from the specific to the minutely specific. Many of the producers have undergone training, some own studios, their own TV stations from which they release films. And so most of the storytelling that we now have benefits from some digital approaches. There is also the fact that from conception to the point of consumption, we see these films showcasing the woman's genre, the female genre in film production. However, when we consider the support or the fight against women's genre, this speaker believes that there is that specific form which should be accepted and discussed further within Nollywood. And where we have some theoretical standpoint is that films communicate. And so we looked at communication theory by Robert Craig. It's an assortment of theories that engage with advertising, business, drama, mass media, etc. And then within the format of sociocultural communication, because most of these women relate their city and culture. And both theories we are looking at here have been influenced by um, apologists like Marshall McLuhan, Foucault, Chomsky, Hall, Gebner, Baudrillard, and what have you. And because film is spectacle, we now consider the issue of gazing by society. When we also consider mediatization from mechanization to electrification and then digitization, we see that most of these female storytellers or women storytellers use telephony. And it's a symbiotic relationship where telephony has helped to shape Nollywood, and to some extent, Nollywood influences telephony based on the fact that many handheld devices that are used as telephones are also used to watch these films. Recently, Fidelity Bank, I think the program should be about now. Fidelity Bank came up with, you know, youth development approaches of teaching young people how to shoot films with their phones. I won't want to dwell on old and new Nollywood again, but the outcomes of the stories for me would mean the use of logic, the use of instruction, as well as technology to enhance development in society. The woman's story in old Nollywood is not as glamorous as it is in new Nollywood. And many of the new Nollywood stories, be they in indigenous forms or language films, emit pain through the lens. And the stories would relive the quotidian life of women, relationships, whether they are local or international, whether they live in the rural or urban settings. One finding from these study phones is common in urban settings, and that would, divert us to question the issue of rural telephony as canvassed by the government some decades ago. And in advancing women and children, that connectivity or the connection of film as agency for the filmmakers and other stakeholders would now become, something very crucial. Film production by women or storytelling by women, sometimes would use women A-list actors to highlight expertise, contributions to artistry, and national development. Some also adapt folklores, okay? They adapt folklores using women-centered themes to harness resources of women as diegetic storytellers. And so some of the stories are ideological, using feminisms, using subversive themes, and palpable struggles against the objectification of women. And that is what Laura Mulvey calls the phallocentrism paradox. Who stands behind the camera or before the camera, and what is the outcome of that exercise? And so equality, equity are also used to framework the assemblage of how women are, reflected in production, content distribution, and consumption. However, some women storytellers are not specific about women's themes. They just use their stories to showcase the Nigerian context. And so some of the stories in new Nollywood, are advocacy and mobilization films. And for some time, government would, want to step in and out without a firm commitment to using film as advocacy and mobilization in the woman's context. We also have propaganda films that would disseminate identity orientation, like the LGBT films. We have gendered bodies or selves double, where sometimes from very several perspectives, actors would want to or would have to come out to defend what they have showcased on screen. And from all perspectives, the use of suspense and technology, special effects and animation would also refer here. There is the context of the meta film, the film within the film, or using television recovery through technology in films, where you have hospital films, the use of the social media, where we now have medium within the new media. In production, we've seen the use of drones and camera rigs that are highly technological or state of the art. Post-production, editing, clipping, would refer here. And then women tell their stories using media affect in fiction versus reality. Affect would mean imputing emotions into the stories that are being told. And then film and the abject affective, where you have suffering and the unconscious beyond control. So I would want to share a particular screen on the use of telephony, okay? The use of telephony in a woman's cond. In this film, the telephone was used 35 times, okay? It was used 35 times from what we have on screen here. And the didactic time is highlighted for us to note the frequency, the use, the impact, or the outcome, especially when they are used for other filmic reasons, just as the analysis of Blackberry Girls shows. There is also the tendency to use telephone to advance the plot and highlight what is not said, what is not dialogue, what is not conversation within the film. There is the aspect of Scent of a Woman, where, the telephone was used just for 15 times. And so in looking at all the taxonomy that we have highlighted, what are the options? Yes, what are the options that are available for the woman storyteller? There is the need for production control. For example, the film Dry or 50 or Wives on Strike showcase this. Remote filmmaking and virtual productions, the use of VR, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence. The streaming of women films is very common now. We have such films on YouTube, Iroko TV, Amazon, Ibaka, Nollywood based on Nollywood 5-star. Post-production, Yemi Morafa, has highlighted the advantages in this, or Chicks in Post, or how we can checkmate character relevance in using nudity to objectify women. We see the reduction of the relevance of personhood or character of women in films, in Nollywood films. And then mobile filmmaking or transmitting options on phones should also be used. But the important issue here would refer to storage, okay? The storage of films as archival resources should be looked at, because in storage lies our history. In storage lies the opportunity for future generations to facilitate their own story at their own present at that time, looking at what is happening now or what has happened as the past. Therefore, the need to expose filmmaker to technology cannot be gainsaid. It's also important to query what have been done and the fact that the projection of women should serve as a means of technological advancement rather than the films being servitude to technology. And training, retraining would be an opportunity for us, even though many of the women rely on pastiche to tell their stories. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. for giving the time. I think it just took additional 2 minutes, but we are now that. No, okay, no, we kept the time. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, please stay with us as we move to the next presenter. We'll come back at the end of that time to now engage with your paper. Thank you, ma'am. So the third presenter is the third paper is between script makers, social media celebrities, and Nollywood. Collaboration, continuities, and discontinuities. Chikeze.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Dr. Chikeze Uzoegunam. I am Senior Lecturer and Deputy Head of Department at Rhodes University in South Africa. Came all the way from there for this conference. My co-presenter is Dr. Richard Ononibu, who is based at Michael Obara University in Abia State. So he's supposed to be here, but he's held up for a visa application that he made. And so we are supposed to present both of us, half of the presentation, but I may have to do everything if he doesn't get here in time. So this topic is born out of something that is very close to the first presenter who wants to present a really wonderful presentation. And we are thinking the same thing about how skit making and social media micro celebrities, if you want, and Nollywood have been involved in this kind of unique and interesting collaboration. And so we are looking at what are the gains and losses, continuities and discontinuities of this collaboration that we see happening now, which is a new phenomenon as we see.
Yeah, it's good, it's good.
US-based speaker.
Please, next slide. Okay, so of course, in Nigeria, we've seen the emergence of comic skit making and how it has significantly shaped the entertainment landscape in recent times, and how it's transforming how storytelling is done both on social media and outside of social media. Skit makers have now risen to prominence, and they have assumed this status of cultural icons who operate alongside traditional Nollywood. And this is made possible by digital technologies. And we know that we live in the digital age that is marked by immediacy, virality, and constant connectivity to online social media platforms. And skit makers have then used this opportunity to make themselves not only entertainers, but also cultural curators. And I think we made that point sufficiently clear. And they have built this kind of celebrity culture that shapes trends, lifestyles, and even political discourses. And we also see how social media platforms like Instagram and YouTube enable skit makers to reach wider audiences, and how they build engagement and also play a key role in contemporary Nigerian culture. Next slide, please. But we know that the phenomenon of skit making took a deep dive during the COVID-19 pandemic. It was during that time that we saw, because many people were stuck indoors, isolating, people were bored out of their minds, and people were glued on their social media and on their mobile phones. So some of these content creators took that opportunity to create short form videos that went viral, that many people watched, and from there, we've seen how such content based on everyday relatable topics and about ordinary lives of people, reflecting, according to Arewa 2012, reflecting social cultural values and concerns that are relevant in our Nigerian and broader African context. But also, skit making, of course, itself is about humor and laughter and fun. And for us Nigerians, humor has always been, since the 1980s at least, a means of escape for many Nigerians. given our worsening social, economic, and political problems in this country. And so laughter has become a medicine for us. And according to YECU 2022, it says it's a means of prefiguring and contesting state power in a Nigerian political system with little opportunity for people to have civic and participatory political engagement. So we take to skip making and making fun of political issues as a way of coping. Please, next slide. So the questions we are interested in here and asking in this paper is, number one, how do technological advancements shape the evolution of Nollywood, and what role do skit makers and micro celebrities, as some of them have become, play in this transformative process? How do skit makers and micro celebrities adopt social media to shape audience engagement? And lastly, what are the gains and losses, continuities and discontinuities in this cultural production, or in this cultural collaboration between skit makers, social media platforms, and Nollywood? Next slide. I want to briefly talk about the political economy of this collaboration. And I want to do this from the point of view of production, distribution, marketing, and consumption. So, in the value chain now, when we're talking about production of this content, the distribution, the marketing, and the consumption, there are a number of things happening that tell us something about the political economy of this kind of unique ecosystem. The first point is that Nollywood filmmakers, as you know them, whether they are old Nollywood filmmakers or new ones, are now able to launch their own productions more easily due to cost and other implications of founding a full-fledged film or TV production. So more Nollywood filmmakers are using social media platforms, especially YouTube now, to have a full-fledged TV movie production. Secondly, is that many of the skit makers and young content creators are now in control of their money. They're not just in control of their content, but also the money they earn on the platform. The money goes to them directly and not through any third party. Number three is that Nollywood, and of course, we know what that means for the economy and for young people who are unemployed and who need employment in our Nigerian context. Number three is that Nollywood actors are able to diversify their income at a more cost-effective manner. Finally, but not the least, consumers, particularly those who cannot afford to pay for streaming services like Netflix, Amazon Prime, are now able to access, using low amounts of data, a vast variety of content, including full-length movies and short-form production. Next slide. So in terms of theory, we are foregrounding this discussion we are drawing from two theories. First is Cultural Netizenship by James Yeku. I'm sure many of you know his book on cultural netizenship. And this framework helps us to interrogate how digital platforms influence cultural practices, identity formation, community engagement, and the role of internet users like you and I in shaping cultural narratives. And the second theory is participatory culture by Henry Jenkins. And this theory highlights the shift from being a passive consumer to an active participator, active content creator. You have the power to be a big player in this ecosystem. Next slide. The first presenter, Dr. Basi Ebeyong, right, has told us how the digital technology or the digital landscape has enabled this kind of collaboration and interesting ecosystem that we see. Because of increased internet penetration and mobile technology, because of democratization of content creation through social media, because of the shift from normal storytelling that we see in Nollywood to a new forms of storytelling that give us opportunity for diverse kind of stories and storytellers to emerge. And of course, the evolution has created a new economic ecosystem, as I've shown previously. Next slide. Now, the slide is not showing well, but the title there is the role of skit makers and influencers. That's the title. I've said this abundantly, so I think we might have to move to that. I don't know how many minutes I have. Thank you. For how many minutes do I have?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Please move to the next slide. Thank you. Is this the next slide? I want to be sure that I'm not missing anything. Please go back. Okay, next slide. Next slide. So this audience engagement is what this slide is talking about. The emergence of social media has transformed the way that audiences engage. So many audience members, people who watch this content online, that we can see how they are no longer passive consumers. They are active because it is their activeness that actually make these content creators to make money. If the audience do not engage, nobody is making any money, right? And so we need to, I hope the content creators and of course people studying this kind of ecosystem of Nollywood now will be interested in also to look at how audiences, the audience perception of what is going on here. Skit makers utilize platforms to gather real-time feedback from the audiences, and it helps them, it encourages this kind of two-way communication model that builds community. And like she said in her presentation, audience intimacy, right? That's what you call it. And please, next slide. I think this is the last slide. So what are the gains? I've said enough about the gains. The integration of skit makers and influencers within Nollywood ecosystem has increased representation. So you know before you get into Nollywood, it was often difficult for you to get, you have to attend many auditions, you have to use referral system and all those. But with this skit making and content creation now, there is more opportunity for people to get into the, to Nollywood more easily. And of course, the emergence of diverse narratives to enrich Nollywood's offering. And of course, to also open up opportunities for Nollywood's offerings to be seen globally, especially with the role of social media in this ecosystem. What are the losses? One of them, just briefly, there's a risk of market saturation with an overwhelming amount of content now, that we see everywhere. Everybody is now a content creator on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, or on TikTok. We're not saying that it's bad, but there is a saturation we're already seeing, and it's potentially diluting artistic depth, quality, and originality. And what are the continuities? We think that traditional storytelling methods and cultural themes continue to influence contemporary works, and it ensures a connection to Nigeria's rich heritage. I think it's also important that we remember that those new voices we see who have become content creators now, it's important that we see their perspective and not only the perspectives of content creators, right, from elsewhere. And then discontinuities, the rise of new cultural figures like skit makers and content creators represents a shift in the dynamics of power and influence within the Nollywood industry. So we can have these discussions during Q&A, but I think we'll end it here because of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been very, very engaging, thought-provoking. Maybe after this time, I'll say a few things about where we can take this to beyond this room. The dialogue that must continue. So the first presenter, I don't need to re-echo everything. People we had everything. So instead of me to just do a recap, I think we just delve into the question and answer, and then we close. So in no particular order. Yes. Okay. Tell us who you are, who your question is for, and then you fire. Okay. I didn't say you should stand up.
I'm Ade Michibefo. I teach and lecture film, Nollywood, and the rest of it. The first presenter, can we talk to the three papers?
Yes, why not?
Okay,
sure.
I hope online.
Prof, can you hear us very clearly? Professor Verema.
Okay. Let me start from Like I said earlier, I was expecting a male, but maybe I took the name to be unisex, you know. But that what she said. Yes, you said TikTok, IG, and the rest of them are what you are looking at. But I want to let you know that there's been a debate about the old and the new Nollywood. And I think Professor Veroma also touched on that. What is old and what is new in Nollywood? What are the parameters that both of you have looked at to now give us what we have here? So for me, like the chair just said, the debate will continue. But your focus is more on the creator-led industry. And it's a good thing. We have been calling for this for years. And let me just say this, which cuts across the three presentations. As we speak, knowledge doesn't have a structure, industrially or institutionally. We have been trying to bring up a motion picture council for God knows how long. It started in 1995, actually, by the Nigerian Film Corporation. This 2025 is about 30 years journey of trying to give an industry that was coming. The co-chair, Professor Ajino Ikwazi, worked tirelessly on that before he left as the MD of Nigerian Film Corporation. So Ekoyo was talking about integration of these skill makers. Nobody has integrated them. They integrated themselves because there is no structure. There's no, and you said there's no institutional gatekeepers. Yes, I hope I'm right. The census board boss just said recently, working on how to get these skill makers, content creators through his own agencies, gatekeeping processes. How will you think that can be done? Maybe you can offer a suggestion to him. And most of what we see from this, the other new Nollywood, as Ekwenyo said, I feel they are immoral contents, forcing us, the audience, to see without looking back. Sinning, that's sin. The Bible says somewhere that we cannot continue to sin and expect grace to abound. But that is what these skill makers are doing. Most of their content are raw, immoral, vulgar, and the rest of it. So we need to do something about that. Professor Everoma was saying something about the new Nollywood and the women's story is now being told with the technology. I would like Prof to give us our own definition of the old Nollywood and the new Nollywood. I don't know what parameters you are using, because before the new can become recognized, there must be a body of works from them. I worked on a new generation of playwrights and dramatists in Nigeria. I call them the post-Oshobison generation. It continues to generate controversies. My panel tomorrow, between 12:45, and then the second one, 3:45, focuses on that. Continue to look at that. So what is your definition of old Nollywood and new Nollywood? And then lastly, I want to say that when the three presentations key into the theme of the panel, and then what economies are we looking at going forward? We have the creative economy, which the government is promoting seriously, and then we have the creator economy. Which one would the three of you or the two people who talked on that profile or suggest for Nigeria creative economy industry? Thank you.
All right. So does anybody among the presenters would like to respond? Because they said so many things, so they didn't, I'm not sure they were. For the last question.
Yeah, it's not the last one that is the question, that was their contribution. So, okay, the last question, which economy are we looking at for the Nigerian situation going forward? I will suggest both of them because one, they're relative, two, they're contextual. But then you raised something very sensitive, the issue of how this creator-led industry can be regulated. I saw something yesterday that was shared in the one platform I belong to. A girl was walking on the road. She now stopped somewhere, pulled her pants, used it as hairband. What is that? In her own country. Like
For
what
content, for content.
content, yes. And then there's also been this shield of using content creation for a lot of things. There's a video that trended some time back where a woman saw the husband's passport at the airport, and then the Nigerian authority got involved, and the next story heard it that it was content. Yes. So I tend to agree with you that it should go beyond the regulation that some social media platforms have introduced, where they take down certain posts that contravene some kind of regulation. It could do well for our own sense of cultural sensibility, which will, to a great extent, which unconsciously teaches our children, our grandchildren, the coming generation, the things they should hold dear.
Thank you. Prof, do you want to respond? Hello, Prof.
I would like to respond to, yes, I've unmuted myself.
Okay.
When I was sharing the screen, one of what I projected was about new, old, or modern or contemporary Nollywood. We have a lot of literature on that. And then I'm sure that Professor Ademiju knows that during the era of old Nollywood films, you had a lot of artisanal productions. There was low use of technology, even low knowledge or awareness of technology. Most of the storylines were fetish, and it was easy for the outcome of every film to, okay? But in new Nollywood, especially when you look at A Woman's Corner, it's difficult to guess the leaning of the outcome of the film. And so, talking about structure, I believe that among women who are filmmakers, who are editors, who are producers within new Nollywood, a form of structure is emerging. It's a bit hierarchical and to some extent demarcated along cultural, indigenous films. But it's happening as a result of mentorship, as a result of creating opportunities for the training of women. And so, just as we may say there is a hierarchy of needs, we have a hierarchy of production capacities. Just as my colleague here just talked about the kind of content that we watch these days, most of them are highly immoral. And so, by the time we have that hierarchy, it becomes possible to generate a taxonomy, or where possible, they are now ranked, not just based on viewership, but in form of content, what they have to offer society. New Nollywood parameters would emerge, if not out of regulation, but out of participation by the audience who are, the consumers of what the creators, turn out. Why did I say so? The question. In the past, critics were able to generate forms or generic drama or generic theater. And that was why I pointed out the fact of the woman's film as a genre. In the past, it was denigrated, it was not seen as important, but today it's accepted because it's something that pertains to what people watch and what they want to watch. On economy, when we talk about creative economy, it's important, but we should not forget the role that governance has to play, whether the economy is creative or it's created. Creativity to me is key. I would want to highlight that which is creative, because in the creativity context, that which is created emerges, whether a war film, the woman's film, whether it's a thriller, whether it's um, political film, or whether it's documentary. And so creativity to me is key. I would want to sound a slight warning or caution that we cannot legislate culture. We cannot regulate or deregulate culture. The best that we can do, or we could do in the present circumstances, would be to sensitize, and film is a powerful tool to achieve that. Because by the time we come to regulate or deregulate, we see why a lot of people will tell you you cannot bring laws into what we do. But for long, it won't stand. And I believe that the Mopicon bill, despite politics, despite governance approach towards it, or even the ethnic cleavages that keep shooting it down, that bill would see would come to fruition, because without having about regulation by tenants would be procedures to pass through, processes that we can, encourage, so that our films are richer, our films are globally acclaimed in the positive aspect, not always tilting it towards culture, towards fetishism, or towards that which has to always take us back to the village. And so the exploits of new Nollywood in this regard, to me, should be applauded, should be applauded, because the various possibilities that are available through special effects, through computer generated imagery, or even through the dichotomy between setting and location, and how some films even fuse these two, should give us a lot of hope that the Mopicon bill will see the light of day. And I believe that by the time artisanal input into filmmaking is um, declining or is totally erased, and we have people who have been trained, who can recognize a tripod and not see it as something that you can sit on, or people who identify these state-of-the-art um, um, technological gadgets used in filmmaking. And that despite the fact that the cost of, of this exposure is required to facilitate the embrace of the economies, whether creative, whether political. Government can no longer stand aloof in what um, Nollywood is doing. And they cannot just come exploit the gains and then push Nollywood off. And then sponsorship, like what the Bank of Industry did expertly in the past, should also be looked at. So that's my intervention, panel chair.
Okay, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
No, thank you so much. Yeah, that's been very, very engaging. Yeah. Okay. No, that's all. Yeah. Okay. You have to speak so that Prof can hear too. It will pick the voice there. Yeah. It will pick just have to just project. Okay. It will pick it.
Okay.
Just speak well. Just speak out.
Woman from University of Maiduguri. I don't think it's a question. I want to react to the two papers here.
Okay.
Because it's a concern. But I was sharing same concern with her just yesterday. Following what Prof just said about the industry, Nollywood as an industry, that government, laws and regulation couldn't regulate because they came on their own. And they say, after you did something on your own, can your father come and gag you and tell you what to do and not to do? Maybe that's part of what's affecting the Mopicon P up till now. Now, from the papers you presented here, I don't really see the future coming so close to achieving the regulation we deserve. Because looking at the independence, the freedom in people making skills, making content, and making gains online. And I begin to wonder, at what point are people going to surrender to government and say, regulate me? Because the other day I was sharing with a colleague, I say, you are into regulations of films. Now, how can film censors board regulate you when the people regulating you is Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and all the every aspect of your content is regulated by these bodies. So what you must not put there is what you know as regulated by these bodies and not what Nigerian government wants to regulate. So what is the fate that government can regulate us, and what is the fate of the industry as conventional industry? When I mean conventional industry, the process of producing under all the deed, you go to cinema or whatever, whether you are talking of Asaba Wood or Lagos Wood or whatever, what is the future that people will still listen to those institutional, conventions and surrender themselves when they are now independent producers, content creators, making their own money as CEOs? So are we hoping for something, better to come out of it as a conventional industry? On the other aspect that Prof mentioned about categorization in Nollywood, old and new, I will only beg Prof to forgive us, because at a point, my children will call me old. Whether they are using the right terminology in that categorization or not, to them, I'm old. And beyond what Professor Mebe just said now, I think we can categorize people according to practitioners within certain interval of age, maybe 19 oldies to 19 older, 20 oldies. So if you practice, whether your film is the best or your film is the worst, if you practice within this era, someone can wake up and categorize you as so era. So I will plead with Prof to forgive us now. Maybe in future, as researchers and film lecturers, we can find a better term to say that old Nollywood and new Nollywood. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Right. Okay, I want him to respond. We see you have about 17 minutes. So
I want to respond to your comments. The comments, of course, are very valid. But of course, we are researchers and we cannot, we don't have all the answers. Because what you have said is a provocation for all of us. But I think the answer lies in the government. And also the fact that, as you said, the Nollywood system does not have a structure. So who is going to be the regulators? For now, the platforms do not regulate because they are making money as well. Right? So social media is making money and regulate effectively. Effectively, they do. Well, they do, but their market model is for profit first and foremost. Right? And so with the with the monetization policy, it's like the more content you make, the more engagement you garner, the more money you make. That's where they are now. But I also don't feel that we should see regulation as something that should now come and kill what we have now seen as a new stream of income for content creators, especially young people. Because they are making money, some of them are making so much money. And I saw a documentary recently on Instagram. They're making tons of money, millions and millions of naira and thousands of dollars. But the question is, should we regulate them and then stifle because yeah, they become a sort of micro industry. I think because
let us, cut it short.
yes, I'm going to end now. Because this thing started during the pandemic 2020. It's been 5 years old. So I think it's early days. So let's see how it evolve. It evolves. Sometimes things evolve naturally. And for now, I think what is happening is interesting. And as researchers, we to research more to understand the system. Then
thank you. Mr. Adidino,
Yes.
Dr. Adidino, and then Dr.
I'm not addressing any of the papers. I just want to add to the discussion. You know, when we look at the history of theatre, remember a time we had the golden, let me start. We had the golden age, and that was for stage performances and so on. Then we had the death of theatre, we had Yoruba, you know, with street performances, slapsticks here and there. Now, you know that this digital content came up during the era, COVID-19 era. So I believe that it is cyclical. It's become and it will go. There's going to be a time that it will modify itself. Without even any regulation, there's going to be a time that people will be able to say, no, I'm not watching this. And so there's going to be a decrease in the monetary gains that the content creator. And that is now going to make people have a shift. And okay, this is what people want. And does it mean that we didn't have content creators before COVID-19? They were there. Well, it was just subtle. So to me, times and seasons will come and go. With time, without any body regulating, this thing will regulate itself.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you to all the presenters. One thing I would like to first of all highlight is this issue of the creative economy and the creator economy. For me, they mean the same thing, because whether you like it or not, they are both creative. And the creative economy is just saying that, oh, everybody who creates is under that economy. You understand? So I would rather that, or I suggest that what you guys have been talking about is something I've also read about, what they call it the influencer creator economy. So that way we know that this is the aspect of the creative economy that we are referring to, because a fashion designer is a creative economist or a creator economist, you know, under all of that. Then finally, I would also like to say this. From the perspective of what I've heard from these creators, I wanted to do my PhD in dance and I couldn't find a script. And one of the creators said to me point blank, he said, look, my job is to create. Your job is to document. And so that made me think. I'm like, truly, he's not an academic. He doesn't know the structure of how to put down these things. So I think it's our job as academics and also practitioners to still do this work of doing the research, but proffering solutions. We shouldn't just, you know, proliferate knowledge without also finding where the solutions will be. And one thing I do know is that the government is very interested right now in policies, but these policies cannot come usually from these guys. It has to come from the ivory tower. And they have better information. They are. I can tell you that they are. By virtue of where I work, the government is interested in all the ministries under the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture. We have been asked to bring policies to guide these different areas. So I think it's our prerogative now as academics to now begin to look into these areas to proffer solutions and to find the right channels to give this information to so that it can be implemented.
Thank you so much. Yes, Madam Adibake.
Thank you very much.
And I'll have the last wrap, just 2 minutes.
Government and relation in terms, because I could remember sometimes maybe around, not sure whether it's 2017 or so, when the Minister for Information then had a session with information officers from Nigeria. The venue in Jos, and the trust of that gathering was trying to look at how
to regulate social media. And I remember Tunde calling at that session. But what I want to bring out is that how come we have not been able to do anything? People have been talking about it. But when you look at us, look at the country like China. Somebody did content about it sometime back. He was saying that look at the kind of content you are showing people shaking their condom and all that. When you go to China, you see the kind of content, you see them teaching, you see science and technology, you see manufacturing, you see everything as content. How have they been able to do it that can't? So these are the questions that researchers must ask. If we say it's not can regulate, when Buhari decided to shut down Twitter, people are making it for a while. They had to go and they had an agreement with government. And so it means that countries still they hold the big still and they should be able to know how to use it. So in all this, if you say we are talking about regulation, yes, they are making a lot of money. How is it impacting on the economy? They are all buying big cars. How much are they paying in taxes? When we do this, where Nollywood is today, I can say that governments have been a part of it. You see internal revenue people coming in to speak with filmmakers, how they should be able to pay their taxes and all that. They come to all these events with the Musuma Film Festival and some others. They did the whole sessions with them. But today now, how much are they paying as taxes? This so-called influencers and all of them. So these are the issues. Companies not making money from them. And then if we are not gaining positively by ways of begging, they are supposed to also influence society positively, and then we are not making money from them. That means that regulatory agencies should be able to know what they do to hold them accountable from what is
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, please, please indulge me.
Just 1 minute.
Yes, Dr. Nollywood, my co-author is here.
Oh, welcome. I mean, you told us about your flight, and we're very sorry. So you're welcome.
I'm glad I met some people.
He was carrying a bag.
All right, so done. Yeah, I was about just wrapping up, Prof. You have something to say? Hello, Prof. Okay, let me just be wrapping up.
So I think it's supposed to raise his hand.
Okay, Prof. Unmute us. Okay. Prof, please, bring him. Okay.
So I've committed it to panels.
Okay, Prof, you can go ahead now.
Click that thing now. Allow to talk.
Okay. Okay, Prof, you can go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Sir. We can't hear you. Check your device if you are muted.
Check the volume. Okay.
And then check the volume too.
Can you hear me?
And also the question in the chat box.
Yes. Yes, but
Professor Kwazi.
it's faint.
Is it any louder now?
It's better.
Okay. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
So we can hear you now. Go ahead, sir.
We can hear you now, sir.
Yeah, I just want to say that I enjoyed the papers. I enjoyed all the papers that were presented. But actually, I'm not here to comment on the papers. I simply want to remind you that we have the same session tomorrow. But that's part 2 of the session. We have it tomorrow at Wednesday.
Yeah, I already announced that, sir. I already announced that tomorrow the part 2 will come up at 12:45. I already announced that tomorrow a part 2 will be 12:45.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So we have just 5 minutes. Let me just wrap up. Sorry, sir. I should not drop costs.
Contribution.
Okay, what's the contribution? Okay, there's a comment there. Me think that if the FRS starts to collect taxes, please hold on. A form of regulation will commence. Nollywood creators may have to consider mediating international contributions to or support a content through monetization. Anyway, that's an idea. Okay, so let me thank everybody, but I'll say a few things about what I've discussed. Yeah.
I want to give a generous leader piece before you let him go. You should.
Professor Kwasi, sir, you have a very stern warning that you must be here tomorrow. From Professor Bewaji. Professor.
Who is issuing the warning?
Professor Bewaji.
Yes, I'll be digitally present.
You must find yourself here tomorrow.
So,
sorry to
no trouble, sir.
I hear you.
Yeah. So you'll be here tomorrow, either digitally or physically. Thank you so much. I welcome sir to this session. Actually, Prof came because of you, sir. Professor Kwasi, sir.
Oh my God, I'm flattered.
Yeah, so it came because of you, so you have to be here tomorrow, sir. So you have to be here tomorrow, sir. So you can share your, you can rekindle your NYC days. All right, thank you, everyone. First and foremost,
I wonder if it's possible. Yes.
The line is breaking. Okay, let me just wrap up, sir. We have just 3 minutes. The first thing I want to say is that regulation is still possible at any time. When the American film industry started booming, the government saw that there's a need for it to be regulated. And that's what gave birth to the ACE code. And other codes from Germany and France and other places, because without regulation, no industry, no government can really, no society can really move. The other thing is that we also need to have, our government needs to understand what geofencing is. They can geofence certain contents. Because as we are talking about, the lady you mentioned that removed her this and put it on her head was the content created outside the country, somewhere in Europe, and then now being done here. I know that's one thing that happens. One content, you know, the original person will do it, another people will start replicating and sharing, you understand? So there's a need for us to geofence. Thirdly, if you look at the Korean film industry now, it's not that they are not having their own sort of social media and so on. Yes, they're doing that. But as a regulation, what we see mostly are the positive side of their society. So there's a need for us, for the government to really, to do something about that without necessarily stifling creativity. Because one thing with us is that we say we want to regulate, and then we stifle creativity and say, you can't do this, you can't do that. So there's a need for balance. So most creatives will be wary when you talk about regulation. They'll be wary because they'll believe, and it's very possible for government to say, let us stifle them. However, I don't see any regulation being possible, except there's a collaboration between the industry players and the government. Without that, I don't think there's any regulation. So the Mobicom bill that we're talking about, it's been years. It's been years. Even there was one in 1999. I can't remember the name now. I was at that meeting somewhere, Maka Igwe and the rest put together, But the fact is that at the end of the day, the industry, players must be involved from the beginning. Not that government will not draft and give to them. But you see, what happens is that even within that now, there is selection. The selection process of the industry player is also another thing. You get it now? No. That's what I'm saying now, because who are the people representing who? You see the same faces representing Nollywood all the time. Yeah. You have the sectoral. Yes, you have national. Then you also have generational representatives. So when you don't take care of that, generational representation, you are going to have issues. The likes of New Akimolayon will not want to sit down with Zebejiro. You get it now, because you'll be coming from your idea, and then he's here, And the likes of, let's say, Tokyo Ocean and the rest, who are after the new accumulation, also say no. So there's a need for anybody that wants to regulate to understand the hierarchies, the dynamics of the industry. The other thing is that somebody mentioned that you were the one that said, the dancer said, mine is to dance. You are to create, you are to document. But that is the truth. Aristotle's poetics did not come up just by that, like that. It followed what Sophocles wrote. To say this is how drama should be written, this should be called comedy, this should be called a tragedy, and so on. So it's actually our duty to do all of this. Now, the other thing that you mentioned in your work, I want to ask this question. I want to just say this, look at it later, because we have no time now, is what I call the what is it now? No, not trans-language now. The challenge of trans-platform sharing. It is easier for you to share between Meta, all the Meta platforms, than to share from Meta to TikTok. You understand? So the algorithms, that's why you have USA now, the US fighting with, with the owner of TikTok, because TikTok has an algorithm that is far ahead of YouTube, Instagram, WhatsApp put together. And they're trying to decode it. So on this note, I think this conversation should go on. We have our names here. I mean, in this note, I will speak with probably Ekwazi after